Hi guys, welcome. This video is about places in news. To make this video, it has required my consistent efforts to track the places in news for the last 1 year, and it has taken 2 weeks of editing for me to do this video. Now my sole objective of working so hard is for you people to succeed so that a quality material reaches you. Now, many channels and many institutes have left the places in news videos. You will see the difference between this and the other videos. Now, my only request for all you people is, if you like this video, please subscribe to Sudeep Sir's channel. And if you like this video, please share this video with all your friends so that they also subscribe to this. The reason I tell you this is, that is a motivation. That motivator is what pushes us to give you such quality content. So I hope if you like this video, please do share and please do subscribe to Sudeep Sir's channel. Enjoy the video, guys. Thank you. Hi guys, welcome to today's session on places in news. Let us discuss all the places that are in news that are very important for your upcoming UPSC Prelims 2024. I have done a very comprehensive list of places in news, so please keep an atlas. As you are looking at the places, don't just write it down, mark it in your atlas. Along with your static mapping of the world, you should learn these dynamic part of world mapping, that is the places in news. Okay, so mark it in your atlas and keep looking at them daily for 15 to 20 minutes to get well versed with the mapping. One more thing that I want to bring into notice is your static part of world mapping is as important as the dynamic mapping that we are going to do today. Okay, so the first place or the first continent that we'll focus on is Africa. Many places are in news in Africa, so Africa has become very important from your exams point of view. So please have a very good clarity on different places in Africa. When it comes to the static part, you should know the mountains in Africa. Okay, you should know the Sahara Desert, the Sahel region. You should know East African Rift Valley. Okay, so these are some of the static parts. Along with that, trace some of the rivers of Africa. For example, you can see White Nile and Blue Nile, and then that going on to become Nile. Then you have rivers like Volta, rivers like Niger, rivers like Orange, rivers like Limpopo. Okay, so these rivers, mark them from their source to the destination. See the traversing of these rivers through different countries. So these are some static part that you should do. Along with that, there are a few important lakes in Africa that you should have a very good idea about. These lakes can be Lake Victoria, Lake Albert, Lake Edward. It can be Lake Malawi, Lake Tanganyika. Okay, and there is another lake called Lake Kivu. So these are some of the lakes that you should also have an idea. Along with this, look at Okavango swamps, Ogaden Desert, okay, Atlas Mountains. These are few static parts in Africa that you should be very well versed with. So considering that you are well versed in the static part, if you are not, just open up the map of Africa and just observe the different places in Africa. So once you're done with it, now comes the dynamic part that I'm going to talk about now within the African continent. The first place that you should observe is to the West Africa near the Gulf of Guinea, that is the Bakassi conflict. There is a region called Bakassi Peninsula. So this peninsula falls in the country called Cameroon, and there's a conflict between Cameroon and Nigeria for the control of this Bakassi Peninsula. Now this peninsula is very rich in oil and natural gas, and hence the conflict. So Bakassi Peninsula is one thing that you should have an idea about. Between the Nigeria and Cameroon is a dispute that is happening. The second is Alayeb conflict. Okay, now this Alayeb conflict is occurring between two nations, that is Egypt and Sudan. Again, this is for the control of the Alayeb region. This comes in the border of Egypt and Sudan. Currently it is controlled by Egypt. However, this region is again in news, so have a very good idea about it. Apart from this, the next is Darfur. Okay, Darfur is a region in Sudan. So in Sudan there are different military factions. So Darfur is a region that is being fought by two military factions inside Sudan itself. One, you have the Sudan Liberation Movement, and you have the Justice and Equality Movement. So these are the two military factions that are fighting in Darfur. Hence Darfur is again in news in Sudan. The next is Tigray. The Tigray is a region in Ethiopia. Now this is again a region that is in conflict because it is a fight or a conflict between the Ethiopian government and the Tigray People Liberation Front. So these two organizations are fighting in order to gain control over Tigray in Ethiopia. The next is in Somalia, there are two regions called Puntland and Jubaland. Okay, these two regions are semi-autonomous regions. So there will always be a conflict between the Somalian government and these administrative regions of Jubaland and Puntland in order to have more autonomy, in order to have more administrative control. So have a very good eye over the Somalias, Puntland and Jubaland. The next is the insurgent groups called Boko Haram. Now these Boko Haram are pledged to establish an Islamic state in the following countries that you can see. Those countries includes the Cameroon, Nigeria, Niger and Benin. These are the four nations where these insurgent groups are trying to establish the Islamic state, and they are wreaking violence. They are committing human rights violations. There is terrorism. So that is why this region is in news. The next is a region called Abyei, A-B-Y-E-I, Abyei. This is again a place of contention that comes in the border between Sudan and South Sudan. It is very rich in oil and natural gas, and hence there is a conflict between Sudan and South Sudan for controlling this region. The next is Maghreb region. Now as you can see, Maghreb region covers these countries. There is Algeria, there is Libya, there is Tunisia, then there is Morocco, then there is Mauritania. Okay, so these together are known as Maghreb region. Maghreb region is suffering from terrorism, political instability, violence. Okay, so these are the regions. This Maghreb region is something that is in commonality suffering from political instability. So again, this should be known to you. The next is Afar Triangle. Okay, when I say Afar Triangle, look at the Ethiopia, Djibouti and Eritrea. Okay, these three, Ethiopia, Djibouti and Eritrea, that comes near the Horn of Africa. This is what is known as Afar Triangle. Now Afar Triangle is a region in conflict because of two communities that are in clash with one another. One is the Afar and another is Issa. So these Afar and Issa communities are in conflict with one another, hence the Afar Triangle is in news. The next is Gulf of Guinea. As you can see, Gulf of Guinea was in news because the Indian Navy had sent a patrol to Gulf of Guinea in order to check for anti-piracy. Okay, so because of this, Gulf of Guinea is in news, and hence you should know the countries that are bordering the Gulf of Guinea. Here you go, these are the countries. There is Gabon, there is Equatorial Guinea, there is Cameroon, there is Nigeria, there is Togo, there is Benin, Ghana, Ivory Coast, as well as there is one island nation called Sao Tome, S-A-O-T-O-M-E, Sao Tome. So these are some of the nations that are bordering the Gulf of Guinea. The next is something called Regional Stabilization Facility. Okay, now this Regional Stabilization Facility is a fund given by United Nations Development Program, that is UNDP, in order to bring back some type of humanitarian aid, in order to reduce violence, in order to provide peace, stability and recovery. For this, the Regional Stabilization Facility is being concentrated in two regions in Africa. One is in Lake Chad Basin. So what is Lake Chad Basin? You are looking at it now. Lake Chad Basin includes the following countries, that is Chad, Niger, Cameroon and Nigeria. That is the first part which is getting the Regional Stabilization Facility. The second part of Africa that is getting or availing this Regional Stabilization Facility is Liptako-Gorma region. As you can see, Liptako-Gorma region constitutes three nations, Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger. Okay, so this is regarding the Africa. A few more things that are in news. I told you Africa has been in news a lot of different reasons, and there are so many regions that are in news, so you should have a very good idea about it. The next nation is Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay, what is happening here is the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. There is two tribes here. In Democratic Republic of Congo you have Hutu tribe, in Rwanda you have Tutsi tribe. So the Hutu tribe have created a rebel group. Okay, that rebel group is known as Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda. In Rwanda there is a Tutsi rebel group that has been created, that is going by the name of M23. So this M23 versus the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda. So these two are clashing in Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo. Hence, you should have a very good idea about this country. Okay. Now, Democratic Republic of Congo, as you're seeing, is bordered by 9 nations. If we start looking at the diagram, this is how it goes. You have Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Malawi, Zambia, Angola, Congo, Central African Republic and South Sudan. So these are the 9 nations that are bordering the Democratic Republic of Congo. And also you should understand Democratic Republic of Congo does have a very small border in the Atlantic Ocean. So you should be very careful about it. Okay, the next is the Amazonia in Cameroon. This Amazonia is a region in Cameroon that is dominated by English stock or English speaking population. Now this English speaking population are having secessionist tendencies and are holding secessionist movements within the Cameroon. That is why this Amazonia is again in news. The next is Botswana was in news because the president of Botswana had threatened that he will send 20,000 elephants to Germany because the German environmental minister had put restrictions on the import of trophies from hunted animals. So this will affect the trade of Botswana, hence that Botswana, as a country was in news. So look at Botswana and look at the surrounding nations of Botswana. You have Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe and South Africa. And also you have Namib Desert, you have Kalahari Desert, you have Katanga, Zambia, Copperbelt. So these are few areas that you should know along with Botswana. Then you have Zanzibar Islands. Our IIT campus has been set up in Zanzibar, so Zanzibar was also in news. So you should have a very good idea about the islands in the east coast of Africa. It can be Zanzibar, it can be Pemba Islands, it can be Mafia Islands, it can be Mozambique, it can also be Comoros. These are some of the islands that are along the east coast of Africa. Also look at some of the countries bordering the east coast of Africa. Okay, that is again very important. Okay, so now apart from this, there is Kariba crisis. This Kariba crisis is a dam where the water levels have dropped. Because the water levels have dropped in the Kariba dam, there has been power shortage and water shortage in both Zambia and Zimbabwe. So this Kariba dam is very, very important from the news as well as from the exam perspective. Then there are two other small places. One is Daba nuclear plant. This is in Egypt. The reason it is making news is because of the environmental footprint and the environmental threat safeguards that is in news. And the last is Dangote refinery. This is again in news because of the setting up, the environmental repercussions and the displacement of local communities. Okay, so these were some of the important places in Africa that are in news. So along with your static, if you can read these places in news, any places that come in Africa, you're going to answer this. That I can assure you of. Now let us look at Europe, Eastern Europe countries that are in news. Before I go into the Europe part, just look at Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe is in news again. Many places are in news. So there are very high chances that the questions can come from this part of the mapping. Okay. So Eastern Europe, as you all know, that the Russian-Ukraine conflict is taking place and hence majority of the attention will be in Eastern Europe part of Russia and Ukraine. Now, before I get into the places in news, some static part that you should have a very good idea is the countries that are surrounding Adriatic Sea. As you can see, you have Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia-Herzegovina, you have Croatia, Slovenia and Italy. These are the countries that are surrounding Adriatic Sea. And then you have countries surrounding Black Sea. That is, you have Bulgaria, you have Romania, you have Ukraine, and then you have Russia, Georgia and Turkey. Now, in this country surrounding Black Sea, look at Romania and look at, Ukraine. Both have a Danube river that forms a common delta between these countries. So the Danube river is a very important river that is in news. Trace this river Danube. Okay, it is the second longest river after Volga in Europe. Okay, and this flows across 10 countries. Okay, it rises in Germany and it flows across 10 countries and it has a delta in the Black Sea. Now, this delta will form three branches. Okay, the Chilia branch, the Sulina branch and the last branch is Georgia branch. Okay, so what is the, why is it news is this delta, the three branches that you have. The Chilia branch comes in Ukraine and the Georgia and the Sulina branch comes in Romania. Okay, and there is a port on this Chilia branch called Izmail port in Ukraine. Okay, and in the Georgia branch of this Danube river, there is a port called, Constanta port of Romania. So there is, now in order to export grains from Ukraine, they are sending the grains from the Chilia branch of Ukraine, that is the Izmail port, to the Georgia branch of Romania, the Constanta port. So the grains are transported from Izmail to the Constanta port within the Danube river delta, and then it is exported to the world. That is why Danube river is in news. Please make sure that you trace the Danube river. Another river that is in news is Dniester. There are few countries in Dniester that are in news, so trace the Dniester river. Okay, and along with this, there are few static places that you should know. For example, you saw the countries of Black Sea, then see the Sea of Azov. Observe the Sea of Azov, okay, because there is a place called Mariupol, Mariupol. Mariupol is the city that is present in Sea of Azov in Ukraine that has been in news. So Sea of Azov is important. So from Sea of Azov, go to Black Sea. From Black Sea, go to Sea of Marmara. When you go to Sea of Marmara, in the north, you have Bosphorus Strait. In the south, you have Dardanelles Strait. Okay, that is again important. So after Sea of Marmara comes Adriatic Sea. Okay, so these are the few important, water bodies within the Eastern Europe. Also observe the important mountains in Eastern Europe. Okay, so these were some of the static parts that you should have a very good idea. Now, if you talk about places in news in Russia-Ukraine war conflict that is happening, these are some of the important places that are in news within the Russia-Ukraine conflict. One is Donetsk and Luhansk. Okay, the second is Mariupol, Mariupol, that is, as I told you, yes, port in the Sea of Azov. The next is Kharkiv, Kharkiv. Kharkiv is the second largest city in Ukraine that is again coming under a lot of bombardment from the Russia, hence it is important. The next is Odessa port, Odessa, Odessa port. Again, this is also a port in Black Sea in Ukraine, very important, note about it. Zaporizhzhia. Okay, the reason why this Zaporizhzhia is in news is because this houses the Eastern Europe's largest nuclear plant. Okay, that is why this is in news. The next is Kherson, Kherson, Kherson on Dnieper River. Okay, Sumy, 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 that is also in news because it is acting as a humanitarian corridor for supplying humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Apart from this, a few other places are Bucha, Irpin, Mykolaiv, that is Mykolaiv, Mykolaiv. Then there is Melitopol, then there is Sevastopol, Crimea and Vinnytsia. Okay, so these were some of the places that are in news due to Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, now let us look at some of the important ports. I've already told you in the beginning what are the important ports, but apart from those, there are a few important ports in Eastern Europe that you should have an idea. One is the Odessa port in Black Sea, Odessa. The second is Mariupol, Mariupol, Mariupol in Sea of Azov. The next is Mykolaiv, that is Mykolaiv, Mykolaiv in Black Sea. The next is Kherson. This is again a port, Kherson. Kherson is in Black Sea as well as it is on Dnieper River. Okay. The next is Izmail and Reni. Okay, that is Izmail, Izmail and Reni, Reni. This is on Danube River. As I told you, Izmail port is a place from where they are sending the grains to Constanta port in Romania. So again, another port is Constanta port. Okay, and one more port is Berdyansk, that is Berdyansk, Berdyansk port. This is in Crimea. It is under the control currently from Russia because Crimea Peninsula is controlled by Russia. Okay, another thing is Danube River, as I told you, rises in Black Forest. It is the second longest river in Europe. It passes through some of the important cities like Regensburg in Germany, Vienna in Australia, Budapest, Bratislava, Belgrade, and then forms a delta between Romania and Ukraine. So I have a very good idea about this Danube River. And as I told you, three branches are Chilia branch, Sulina branch and Gorge branch. Okay, so I have an idea about these three ports. So these were some of the important places in news in Russia-Ukraine conflict. Apart from this, there is also a place called Transnistria. This place, Transnistria in Moldova. Okay, this also comes over Dniester River, and again here there are movements for secessionist. Okay, they want to declare autonomy and they want to declare a separate nation. So that is the conflict that is happening in Transnistria in Moldova. That again comes, it is a landlocked country. Moldova does not share the border in Black Sea if you observe carefully. And it comes between Romania and Ukraine. It comes between that, Moldova comes in that particular part. So I have a good idea about Moldova as well. These were some of the nations in Eastern Europe. When you come to Western Europe, Orkney Islands is in news. Okay, Orkney Island is in news because they want to break away from United Kingdom. So that is why Orkney Islands is in news. Apart from that, there is again Nordic 8 countries. This is a new grouping that is formed for a recent convention that happened in India. That is Nordic 8. This is what they call. The Nordic 8 involves, you have Denmark, you have Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and then you have Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia. Okay, so you have Nordic and Baltic. Nordic and Baltic together will become Nordic 8 countries. These were again in news, hence you should have a very good idea about this. Okay, apart from this, Siberia is in news, guys. Okay, Siberia has been in news, so you should know a lot of things about Siberia. This is where I start telling you, look at the map very carefully. 2 straits are very important. You have Bering Strait okay, where you have Pevek port, okay, Bering Strait, Pevek port, and Kara Strait, you have Murmansk port. This Murmansk port was in news. The reason why it was in news is in the in the current year, 35% of the cargo handled in Murmansk port is India's. So Murmansk port was in news, and it's very, very important strategically even for India. So you should know where Murmansk port is. That is in Kara Strait. And Bering Strait is another important place because there is Pevek port. Why is this Pevek port and Murmansk port important is Russia is trying to build a northern sea route. That northern sea route will connect this Pevek port to Murmansk port. That is from Bering Strait to Kara Strait. Now, as you can see in the map, I'll go from east to west. Look at the important seas in the Siberia that are very, very important. Okay, I'm going from east to west. All right. So you have the Bering Sea, you have the Chukchi Sea, you have the East Siberia Sea, you have the Laptev Sea, you have the Kara Sea, and the last you have Barents Sea. Okay, these are the seas from east to west. I'll repeat: Bering Sea, Chukchi Sea, East Siberia Sea, Laptev Sea, Kara Sea, and Barents Sea. Okay, now in all these islands, Bering Strait comes between Bering and Chukchi, and on Bering Strait you have Pevek port, and you have Kara Strait that comes between Kara Sea and Barents Sea, and that Kara Strait as Murmansk port. So the northern sea route runs from the Bering Strait to Kara Strait. So I hope now you got a very good idea about the northern sea route. It becomes strategically very important. Also, since India and Russia are trying to build something called Chennai-Vladivostok sea route, again this Siberian connectivity becomes very, very important. Okay, with that, the next group of islands that are in news are Kuril Islands. Okay, Kuril Islands are in news because Kuril Islands are in conflict between Russia and the Japanese group of islands. Japan claims the southern part of Kuril. Kuril runs from the Japan to Kamchatka Peninsula of Russia. So that is the Kuril Islands. One more important part is Kuril Islands are volcanic islands. I have a very good idea about this. One more part that is in news is White Sea. The reason why White Sea is in news is because there was an intercontinental ballistic missile that was launched for testing via submarine by Russia called Bulava. Okay, so this happened in White Sea. So White Sea, you just heard about Barents Sea, correct? From Barents Sea, there is an inlet. If you go into that inlet, you are going to find White Sea. And there are two important peninsulas there in the north of White Sea, that is Kola Peninsula and Kanin Peninsula. So these are again important. Okay, the next is Nord Stream. This is something that was there in news in Europe between Russia and Germany. This is a pipeline. Nord Stream is a pipeline that transports natural gas and petroleum between the Russia and European countries, and this pipeline runs from Vyborg, Vyborg in Germany to Greifswald, that is Greifswald, Greifswald in Germany. So this is where the Nord Stream pipeline runs. Okay, this is a natural gas pipeline, and there was another Nord Stream 2 that had to come up, however this was stopped. So currently there is only one pipeline, that is Nord Stream, that connects Vyborg from Germany to Greifswald from, Vyborg from Russia to Greifswald from Germany. Okay, so this is about the Nord Stream. The next is Lake Baikal was in news. The reason was because there was an underwater robot that was sent to explore the Lake Baikal. It was sent because Lake Baikal is the largest as well as the deepest freshwater lake by volume. And they found mud volcanoes in this Lake Baikal. So you should know about Lake Baikal that is there in Russia. Don't confuse this with Lake Balkhash. Lake Balkhash is in Kazakhstan, and the speciality of Lake Balkhash is two parts of the lake. The western part is fresh, the eastern part is saline. So don't confuse this with Balkhash. Lake Baikal is in news. So these were some of the important places in Siberia that were also in news. So I hope you people got to know what are important places in Europe, Eastern Europe as well as in Siberia. The next, let us look at West Asia. Okay, West Asia has always been in news, and it is one of the favorites of UPSC. So you should have very, very well, equipped spatial sense when it comes to West Asia. Some of the static part that you should have very good idea about West Asia is the countries of West Asia. The countries of West Asia bordering the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, and what are the countries that are bordering the Red Sea? Because Red Sea is in news for a lot of reasons. You should have a very good idea about the countries that are bordering the Red Sea. You have 6 nations that border the Red Sea. You have Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, Yemen and Saudi Arabia. These are the 6 nations that border the Red Sea. Within the Red Sea, you have the Suez Strait and then the Strait of Bab el Mandeb. Okay, again, Strait of Bab el-Mandeb is bordered by Eritrea, Djibouti, and Yemen. Okay, this is another important strait. Strategically, it has been in news. Another place that you should have a very good idea is about the Persian Gulf. Okay, the Persian Gulf is very important. What are all the nations that surround the Persian Gulf? Are 8 countries. So these are the 8 countries. If you look at it carefully, there is a very small part of Oman that surrounds the Persian Gulf. From there, you go in a clockwise direction. You have Oman, you have UAE, you have Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, and Iran. These together are the nations that are bordering the Persian Gulf. Then also, you should not forget the Caspian Sea. The countries that are bordering the Caspian Sea are also important because Azerbaijan is in news. So you have the countries from Azerbaijan in a clockwise direction. You have Azerbaijan, Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Iran. So these are the 5 nations that border the Caspian Sea. Apart from that, Strait of Hormuz is also in news. The bordering countries between the Strait of Hormuz is Oman and Iran. Okay, and Chabahar port is in news. And its proximity to Gwadar port is also important. Chabahar port does not come in Persian Gulf, it comes in Gulf of Oman. So be very careful of this. So these are some of the spatial sense from static mapping in West Asia that you should have a very good idea about. Apart from this, there has been a Gaza-Israel conflict that is happening, and hence a lot of cities within Gaza are in news, Israel are in news, as well as the West Bank part of Palestine is also in news. So let me talk about a few cities that are in news in Gaza. In Gaza, you have Gaza city, that is the largest city of the Palestine part of Gaza. Okay, the second is Gaza shares a border in Mediterranean Sea. Do not forget that. Okay, it has a coast along the Mediterranean. The second largest city of Gaza was Khan Yunis. This is also in news. The next is Rafah was in news. This is a city that comes in the border of Gaza and Egypt. There is something called Rafah crossing. That is where the people are moving towards Egypt because of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The next is Beit Anon. Now Beit Anon is also in the border district. However, this is in the northern part of Gaza between Gaza and Israel. So this is again very important part. The next is Jabalia. Okay, Jabalia is a news that was in news. This comes in Gaza, and this was in news because of it becoming a refugee camp. Okay, so these were some of the important cities inside Gaza, that is Gaza city, Khan Yunis, Rafah, Beit Anon, and Jabalia. In Israel also, there were a few places that are in news. One is obviously Tel Aviv. The second is Ashkelon, that is Ashkelon, Ashkelon. The next is Sderot, that is Sderot, Sderot. And the last is Beersheba, that is Beersheba. These are places that were attacked. These were places either they were attacked by rockets or they were attacked by some of the insurgent groups from Gaza. So this again are the cities that are in news in Israel. The next is few places that were in news in the Palestine part of West Bank. Okay, that are Ramallah, okay, which is the administrative capital of West Bank. The next is Hebron, 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 and Nablus, Nablus. These 3 cities were also in news, so you should have a good idea about it. Now, in this Israel-Gaza conflict, there is something called crossing, where either humanitarian aid is being supplied or out migration of people is happening. So these crossings are very important. So I have a very good idea about Rafah crossing. As I told you, Rafah crossing is a crossing between Gaza and Egypt. Okay, Rafah is a city in Gaza that comes at the border of Gaza and Egypt. The next is Erez crossing, E-R-E-Z crossing. Now this Erez crossing is important because it comes along the border of Israel and Gaza. Okay, the next is Karim Shalom crossing. This Karim Shalom crossing is important because it comes in a junction of Egypt, Gaza, and Israel. So Karim Shalom crossing has 2 parts. On one side, there is crossing between Gaza and Egypt. On one side, there is a crossing between Gaza and Israel. So Gaza and Egypt also there is a crossing. Gaza and Israel also there is a crossing. That's the speciality of Karim Shalom crossing. So these are the 3 important crossing that is in news: Rafah crossing, Erez crossing, and Karim Shalom crossing. Okay. Apart from this, you also know that Yemen is in news. Yemen is in news because of the Iran-backed Houthi rebels that are constantly in conflict with the internationally recognized government of Yemen. So the places in Yemen that are in news are one, Sana'a. Second is Odeda. Again, Odeda is a very, very important port. Okay, if you take Odeda port, that port is in the Red Sea part of Yemen. Okay, it is not in Gulf of Aden part of Yemen. So you should be very, very careful about that. Odeda port is important. The next is Aden, A-D-E-N, Aden. The next is Marib, M-A-R-I-B, Marib. The next is Al-Jaf, A-L-J-A-W-F, Al-Jaf. Sada, S-A-A-D-A.
Taiz, T-A-I-Z, Taiz. Okay, these are some of the cities: Sana, Odeda, Aden, Marib, Aljef, Sada and Taiz. These are places that are in news from Yemen. Apart from this, Chabahar port, recently India had signed an agreement so that it becomes one of the terminal of Chabahar port becomes operational. Chabahar port is in Gulf of Oman. It is not in Persian Gulf. It is part of Iran. And from Chabahar port, there is a proximity to Gwadar port that has been developed by China in Pakistan. So Chabahar port is developed in order to have access into Central Asia and Afghanistan via a few places called Zahedan, Zaranj and Kabul. Okay, so you should know these places from Chabahar, Zahedan, Zaranj and Kabul. So know these places very well. Okay, apart from this, we also have to discuss the India Middle East Economic Corridor. If you take the India Middle East Economic Corridor, the corridor can be broken down into two halves. One is India to Arabian Gulf, that is the Eastern Corridor, and then the Arabian Gulf to Europe, that is the Northern Corridor. So these are some of the important places along the corridor that it is going to connect. So look at the places. I will start obviously in India. You have Mundra port, you have JNPT port, you have Mumbai port. These are the three important places from India. From India, if you go to UAE, you have Al Guwaifat, that is ALGUWAIFAT, Al Guwaifat, and Jabal Ali. Al Guwaifat and Jabal Ali are places in UAE. Then you have in Saudi, you have Arad and you have Al Adita. Okay. Then in Israel, you have a port called Haifa, and then in Greece, you have Piraeus. In Italy, you have Messina. In France, you have Marzeli. Okay, these are the places that the India, Middle East, European corridor connects along its way. Outside this, some of the other important places that were in news last year, which can come this year, are there is a place called Gaziantep, Gaziantep. This Gaziantep is a place in Turkey which is housing a lot of Syrian refugees because of Syrian conflict. So they can confuse you by telling Gaziantep. It is not in Gaza, it is in Turkey. One more place that is in news is in Jordan, that is Zatari refugee camp. This again is housing a lot of people who are coming out of Syria because of the Syrian conflict. Okay, in Syria, the places that are in news due to Syrian conflict are Idlib, that is IDLIB, then you have Aleppo, and then you have Damascus, and then you have Raqqa. These are the places in Syria that are in news. Then you have Iraq. If you take Iraq, there are two places, one place that is in news in Iraq, that is Erbil. Okay, Erbil is in news because it is the capital of autonomous Kurdistan region. Kurds are the largest stateless migrant population that is there in the world. Okay, and hence Erbil in Iraq is is made as the autonomous Kurdistan region's capital. Okay, so this again is becoming very important. So these were some of the very important news that were there in West Asia. Okay, so learn West Asia thoroughly. You should know very, very well, because one question from West Asia is there always in the question paper, because it is one of the favorites of UPSC. So I hope you have got West Asia covered. Now let us look at Southeast Asia. Before we get into the Southeast Asian dynamic aspect, that is the places in news, you should also have an idea about the static part. So know what are all the nations in Southeast Asia. Okay, broadly the Southeast Asian countries can be divided into two groups. One is mainland nations, another is island nations. When I say mainland nations, it includes 5, that is Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos and Vietnam. And then when I say island nations, that includes 5, that is Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Brunei and Philippines. So these 10 put together are Southeast Asian nations. Okay, one more nation that is in news is Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste has been accorded observer status in ASEAN nations. However, still the Timor-Leste is not accorded the full membership, so you cannot say that it is the 11th member already, but it is also one of the important nations in Southeast Asia that is making news, so have a very good idea about it. Apart from this, you should have an idea about Sunda Strait, Makassar Strait and Malacca Strait. With this, Borneo Islands is also important. Okay, the Indonesia has changed its capital. The capital has come to Kalimantan, so it is very, very important that you know Borneo Islands. So Borneo Island is an island that has 3 nations. You have Malaysia, you have Indonesia, and then you have Brunei. So have a very good idea about it. Apart from this, the South China Sea is again making a lot of noise. The noise is because of Vietnam versus China or China versus Philippines. So this constant tussle that is happening along with Taiwan that is there within this particular conflict is become very, very important. So the countries bordering South China Sea is very, very important. So these are the static parts that you should have very good idea about. Apart from this, if I go into the dynamic part, the first and the very important country is Myanmar. Myanmar is in news since 2021 when there was a military coup. From then upon, Myanmar is suffering from conflict between 3 parties. One is the junta group of Myanmar, that is the military camp or military of Myanmar, which is called junta. Okay. The next is Three Brotherhood Alliance. Now, this Three Brotherhood Alliance is all the rebel group of Myanmar have come together to form this Three Brotherhood Alliance. The third is the military camp of the Democratic Forces of Myanmar. So, this tripartite struggle is taking place within Myanmar. So, if you observe the states of Myanmar, very, very important are the Rakhine state. Rakhine state was in news because one, it is having, or it is from where the Rohingya, Muslims are, out. I mean, the Rohingyas are coming out. That is one thing why it is in news. The second reason it is in news is because you have Kaladan multimodal project between India and Myanmar. So what is this project? This project is connecting Kolkata to Sitwe port, and from Sitwe port you go via the Kaladan river to a place called Paletwa. Now this Paletwa is a place that is there in Rakhine state. From that Paletwa you go into a place called Zorinpui in Mizoram. Now, this is how the entire trade goes from Kolkata to Sitwe up the Kaladan river to Paletwa, that is in Rakhine, and from Paletwa to Zorinpui in Mizoram. Now, the problem is this Paletwa, since it falls in Rakhine, and this Rakhine is under the control of Arakan army, this project is coming to an halt. That is why Rakhine state is important. And one more thing what is important is this Rakhine state does not share border with India, it shares the border with Bangladesh. Apart from this, other states of Myanmar are one, Kachin and Shan state. If you see at Kachin and Shan state, these are two states that are sharing border with China. There also there is a conflict that is happening. Apart from these two states that shares its border with India are Chin state and Sagaing state. If you observe, Chin and Sagaing state are the states of Myanmar that shares its border with India. Overall, India and Myanmar border is along the Indian states of Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram. So along this border, the Chin state as well as the Sagaing state are the two states of Myanmar that is shared between the Indian states. So these are some of the important places in Myanmar. Then if you come to Thailand, there is something called Pattani. That is a region in Thailand. It is suffering from insurgency. The insurgency is mainly because of the issues of autonomy and security. Outside this, coming back to South China Sea, we should obviously know the static part of South China, but there are a few islands within South China Sea that are in news because of the conflict. The first island is Spratly Island. Spratly Island is in news because of the conflict between China, Vietnam, Taiwan, Philippines and Malaysia. Okay. Paracel Island is in news because of the conflict between China, Vietnam and Taiwan. Scarborough Shoal is in news because of the conflict between China, Philippines and Taiwan. Secondary Thomas Shoal is in news because of the conflict between China and Philippines. Natuna Island is in news because of the conflict between China and Indonesia. Then you have Pratas Island, that is in conflict between China and Taiwan. Then you have Triton Highland, that is in conflict between China, Vietnam and Taiwan. Then you have Kinmen Islands, that is in conflict between China and Taiwan. So these are some of the important islands and shoals that are there in news in South China that you should know very, very well. Apart from this, you have Gulf of Tonkin. This Gulf of Tonkin is a gulf that comes between two nations, Vietnam and China. So there is a conflict between Vietnam and China, and there was a recent baseline. UN clause, there's a concept called baseline. This baseline was drawn in Gulf of Tonkin by China. That baseline was changed. So again, Gulf of Tonkin is in news. Outside this, there is also one place called Isthmus of Kra. This Isthmus of Kra was in news because they wanted to build a land bridge in Thailand. Isthmus of Kra, Isthmus of Kra comes in Thailand, and they wanted to build a land bridge that is connecting the Gulf of Thailand with Andaman Sea, and this land bridge is what is known as Isthmus of Kra. That was in news again, so know Isthmus of Kra very well. It is not yet built. There was proposal to build this land bridge in order to remove the pressure of Malacca Strait. However, this is still a proposal. Just like Ben Gurion project to remove the pressure from the Suez Canal, the same way the Isthmus of Kra project was also some proposal that was not yet undertaken. Okay. Now, apart from this, you should also know very well the Gulf of Thailand countries. That includes Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam and Malaysia. Okay. Now, Mekong River is in news. Mekong River is also called Lan Kang River because there's a dam called Lan Kang in China. Okay. Now, this Mekong River rises in Tibetan Plateau. It flows across 6 countries of Southeast Asia. So you have China, you have Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam and Laos. So these are the countries that Mekong River flows through. It is the 12th longest river of the world and the 3rd longest river of Asia. The 3rd longest after Asia, Yangtze is the first, Yellow River is the second, the third is Mekong River. So this is some information that you should know about Southeast Asia. So I hope I was clear about Southeast Asia. Again, very high chances that questions can come from Southeast Asia. So please learn thoroughly. The next is the countries of South America. The few countries that you should know very well in South America that are making a news is, one is the Essequibo region. Now, recently in Venezuela, okay, there was a referendum that was kept, and this referendum wanted them to acquire Essequibo. Essequibo is a region in Guyana. So there's a constant tussle between Guyana and Venezuela for this Essequibo region, because Essequibo is very, very rich in oil and natural gas. However, if Venezuela goes and captures this Essequibo, 2/3 of Guyana is gone. So that is the problem here. So Essequibo is in news because of the constant tussle between Guyana and Venezuela. The next is Pantanal Islands is in news. Pantanal Island is the largest tropical wetland in the world, and this wetland is spanning across Brazil, Bolivia and Paraguay. The reason why it is in news is because of two reasons. One is the forest fires that happened across this wetland. The second is there is a new project that is coming up that is known as Hidrovia project. Now this Hidrovia project is a large navigation project that is taken up in this Pantanal Islands, which is going to degrade the environment, and hence the Pantanal Island is in news. So have a very good idea about this. Apart from this, Gran Chaco forest is in news. This Gran Chaco forest spans across Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil and Paraguay. And this Gran Chaco forest is also in news because of deforestation and forest fires. Okay, outside this, another river that is in news is Magdalena River in Colombia. The reason why it is in news is because it is the Colombia's largest estuary. Magdalena forms Colombia's largest estuary, and this estuary is drying up. That is why it is in news. Apart from this, you have Darien Gap. This Darien Gap is known as a donkey route. You should have seen the movie called Donkey. The donkey is an illegal way of entering into a country, and this Darien Gap is one such donkey route. This Darien Gap comes between Panama and Colombia. Okay, it is a pathway from Colombia to Panama, from Central America to North America. So it is an illegal route through which people will migrate to North America. Okay, hence Darien Gap is again important. One more thing is Mercosur group. India is trying to improve its relationship with Mercosur grouping in South America. The Mercosur grouping, it constitutes Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay and Uruguay. Okay, so these are some of the important nations of South America that are very, very important. Okay, apart from this, okay, there is something called Caucasus nations. Okay, Caucasus nations are in news. When I say Caucasus nation, they come south of Urals, and Caucasus nations come in the junction of Black Sea and Caspian Sea, as you can see. And Caucasus nations are three. You have Armenia, that is landlocked, and on the either side you have Georgia and Azerbaijan. So if you go from Black Sea towards Caspian Sea, this is how it is. You have Georgia, Armenia and Azerbaijan. Georgia as its border in Black Sea, Azerbaijan as its border in Caspian Sea, and Armenia is landlocked. The reason why it is in news is because of Nagorno-Karabakh. This Nagorno-Karabakh is a place within Azerbaijan that was an Armenian enclave. Now, because of a blitzkrieg attack by Azerbaijan, they removed all these Armenian people from that Nagorno-Karabakh, and they occupied this enclave, and now these Armenian people are now pushed back to Armenia. Now, this has angered Armenia because Armenia banked on Russia to support this Armenia's enclave, but Russia did not support this, and Turkey supported Azerbaijan. So for this, Armenia is angry and wants to come out of a grouping, and that grouping's name is Collective Security Treaty Organization. Now, this Collective Security Treaty Organization is an intergovernmental military alliance in Eurasia that is of 6 countries. You have Armenia, Kazakhstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Belarus and Kyrgyzstan. These are the nations together that form the Collective Security Treaty Organization. So here, the Armenia, because it was not happy with Russia and the way it supported the Armenian people being removed from Nagorno-Karabakh, wants to come out of this Collective Security Treaty Organization, and hence these Caucasus countries are also in news. Outside this South Asia, you should have a good idea. South Asia also, the issue is happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan along its border. This conflict between Pakistan and Afghanistan along its border, the name is Kurram-Parachinar conflict. This Kurram-Parachinar is a place that comes along the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan. This is where the issue is happening between them. Then if you come to Pakistan and Iran, there is issue that is happening. Each country is bombing each other's places. Okay, now the place that is in news from Iran's perspective is Sistan Baluchistan. Okay, don't confuse this with Baluchistan province of Pakistan. There is Sistan Baluchistan in Iran also. So if you take Sistan Baluchistan of Iran, there Zahedan is the capital. Remember in Chabahar port I had spoken about Zahedan before going into Zaranj. So that Zahedan is what I'm speaking here. So from Sistan Baluchistan province, the capital is Zahedan. That is in news because of the Pakistan's bombing and other things. Now Baluchistan in Pakistan is also in news because again the bombing is happening from the Iran side. So in Baluchistan there is Panjgur district and Taftan region. Okay, both are in news because of the conflicts. Okay, so these are some of the regions in South Asia that are in news. Okay, now apart from these, just to give you a run up of all the islands of the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean islands are in news. As you know, Maldives issue is happening. India is trying to set up more naval bases in other countries like Seychelles, Mauritius. So the islands should have you should have a very good idea about these islands. So in the Indian Ocean, if you go from Lakshadweep's Minicoy Island, south of that, these are the important islands. You have Maldives, you have Seychelles, you have Chagos, Diego Garcia, Comoros, Mauritius, and Reunion Islands. And to the west, okay, you have Socotra Island that belongs to Yemen. So these are some of the important islands of Indian Ocean that you should know from north to south. Alright, so these were some of the very, very important places that were in news. I worked really hard to get all these places in one video so that it helps you. Please make use of this. Keep an atlas, mark all the places. If you have doubts, keep looking at the video again and again and again. If you want, for the out of convenience, what you can do is every day you can take one continent, mark those places and read it. Or every day you can take one continent, look at my video, look at the animations, look at the particular places and go. Because 5 to 10 questions can come from world mapping because UPSC has started to intermingle world mapping with international relations. Okay, because it's intermingling world mapping with international relations, there are more questions that are going to come from world mapping. So you should know world mapping very well. Now within world mapping, just by knowing places in news will not do. You should have a very good grip over the static. So I hope you're going to do static well and I will take care of the places in news. If you have liked this video guys, please like, share and subscribe. Please share it guys so that it motivates me to do such videos more. And please like and please comment for this video. Thank you so much for all the love and support guys. I'll come back again with more videos that will help you. All the very best for your exams. Bye.